Picture this. It's a warm Saturday afternoon, and I've just finished helping my friend Jake move some furniture into his new apartment. We've known each other since college, about 7 years now, and have the kind of friendship where we can go from deep philosophical conversations to laughing uncontrollably at the dumbest jokes within minutes. Jake is what you'd call a stereotypical bro, loves sports, video games, and has dated more women than I can keep track of. He's straight as an arrow, while I came out to him about 4 years ago. That revelation never changed our dynamic, which is something I've always appreciated about him. So there we are, sweaty and exhausted after carrying his ridiculously heavy couch up 3 flights of stairs because the elevator was conveniently out of order that day. I'm feeling particularly gross, my t-shirt clinging to my back, and I mentioned that I should probably head home to clean up. That's when Jake, without missing a beat, says, "Dude, just use my shower. I already set up the bathroom and everything. No need to drive across town just to wash up." Now, let me explain why this offer caught me slightly off guard. While Jake and I are close, we've never really crossed certain physical boundaries. We've never shared accommodations on trips, always booking separate hotel rooms. We've never changed in front of each other, even when going to the gym together. There's always been this unspoken physical distance that I assumed was just part of our friendship dynamic, perhaps amplified by my sexuality. Not because he was uncomfortable with me being gay, but maybe because he was cautious about creating any awkward situations. But here he was, casually offering his shower like it was nothing. I remember hesitating for a moment, trying to gauge if there was any awkwardness in his expression, but he just looked at me with that expectant, well, face he makes when he thinks I'm overthinking something simple. And he was right. I was overthinking it. This was just a practical solution to a simple problem. We're adults, after all. What's the big deal about using a friend's shower? Sure, that makes sense, I replied, trying to match his casual tone. Got a towel I can use? Jake pointed me toward the bathroom, mentioning he had clean towels in the cabinet under the sink. He then went back to unpacking some boxes in the living room while I gathered my thoughts and headed to the bathroom. The bathroom was surprisingly clean for someone who had just moved in. Jake had always been more organized than people gave him credit for. I found the towels right where he said they would be, set one on the counter, and started the water. Now, I should mention that Jake's new apartment had one of those fancy rainfall shower heads that takes a minute to get to the right temperature. I was standing there, hand under the stream, waiting for it to warm up, when I heard it. 3 quick knocks on the bathroom door that made me jump slightly. "Yeah," I called out, suddenly feeling oddly vulnerable despite being fully clothed. "Hey, is the water pressure okay?" Jake's voice came through the door. The landlord mentioned something about the 3rd floor having issues sometimes. There was something so unexpectedly funny about the situation. Here I was, having momentarily worried about potential awkwardness in using my straight friend's shower, and his only concern was whether the water pressure was satisfactory. I couldn't help but laugh. "I haven't even gotten in yet," I replied, still chuckling. "But the pressure seems fine from what I can tell." "Cool, cool," he responded. "Just wanted to check. There are extra shampoo bottles under the sink if you need them." And just like that, he walked away. I stood there for a moment, smiling at how I'd built this whole narrative in my head about crossing friendship boundaries, when for Jake, this was simply about being a good host and making sure his guest had adequate water pressure and hair products. Let me take a moment to reflect on why this small interaction actually reveals quite a lot about friendship dynamics, particularly between straight and gay men. In our society, there's often this unspoken tension, this assumption that physical proximity between men of different sexual orientations must somehow be charged with something beyond friendship. It's a stereotype that unfairly affects both sides. Straight men fear giving the wrong impression, while gay men worry about being perceived as having ulterior motives. What made this moment significant for me wasn't just the humor in the situation, but the realization that Jake and I had developed a friendship that transcended these societal hang-ups. He wasn't offering his shower as some grand statement about his comfort with my sexuality. He was just being practical. The water pressure question wasn't him checking up on me out of discomfort. He was genuinely concerned about his new apartment's plumbing. Sometimes a shower is just a shower, and sometimes a friend is just a friend looking out for your basic needs. As I finally stepped into the shower and felt the warm water washing away the sweat and fatigue from moving furniture all day, I found myself appreciating our friendship on a deeper level. There's something profoundly meaningful about relationships that don't need to be constantly analyzed or justified. Friendships where practical considerations, like not wanting your friend to drive across town while sweaty, outweigh societal expectations about how men should interact. The shower itself was uneventful, though I did take the opportunity to check out what kind of shampoo Jake used. Some tea tree oil thing that explained why his hair always smelled so good. I made a mental note to ask him about it later. When I finished, I dried off, got dressed in the clean clothes I had in my backpack. I always keep a change of clothes in my car, a habit from my college days, and rejoined Jake in the living room where he was setting up his gaming console. Better? He asked without looking up from the tangle of cords he was sorting through. Much better, I replied. Though your fancy shower head takes forever to warm up. Tell me about it, he groaned. The property manager acted like it was some luxury feature, but I'm pretty sure it's just inefficient plumbing with a chrome finish. And just like that, we were back to our normal banter. No awkwardness, no lingering tension, just two friends continuing their day. We spent the rest of the afternoon setting up his entertainment system and ordering way too much pizza, the shower incident becoming nothing more than a funny anecdote in our friendship history. But here's where this story gets interesting, at least in terms of what it taught me about myself and about friendships in general. That evening, as I was driving home, I found myself reflecting on how quickly I had jumped to overthinking Jake's simple offer. Why had I immediately framed it through the lens of our different sexualities? Why had I assumed there would be awkwardness where there was none? I realized that sometimes I was the one creating barriers in our friendship, not Jake. I was the one bringing societal baggage into a relationship that had long since established its own rules and boundaries. Jake had never given me any reason to think he viewed our friendship differently because I was gay, yet I was still anticipating discomfort that existed primarily in my imagination. This realization was both humbling and liberating. Humbling because I had to acknowledge my own role in perpetuating stereotypes I claimed to reject, and liberating because it meant I could choose to stop doing that. I could choose to take friendly gestures at face value without analyzing them through the prism of sexuality. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle changes in how I approached not just my friendship with Jake, but other friendships as well. I became more aware of when I was projecting anticipated discomfort onto situations rather than simply experiencing them as they were. I found myself more willing to accept help, share spaces, and generally exist more authentically in my friendships without constantly calculating how my actions might be perceived. About a month after the shower incident, Jake and I were planning a weekend road trip to see our college friend's band play in a city about 4 hours away. When Jake suggested we share a hotel room to save money, I agreed without hesitation. It wasn't a big dramatic moment, just a practical decision between friends. But for me, it represented growth, a shedding of unnecessary anxiety about friendship boundaries. The trip itself was fantastic. We spent hours in the car talking about everything from career aspirations to our dating lives, cheered until we lost our voices at our friend's concert, and yes, shared a hotel room with zero awkwardness. At one point, Jake even borrowed my deodorant without asking, the ultimate sign of comfortable friendship, if you ask me. Let me explain why this matters beyond just my personal growth. In a broader social context, the artificial boundaries we sometimes create between straight and gay friendships don't just affect individuals. They reinforce larger patterns of separation and othering. Every time we can break down these unnecessary barriers in our personal relationships, we contribute in some small way to breaking them down in society as a whole. I've talked to other gay friends who have similar stories, moments where they realized they were the ones anticipating rejection or awkwardness from straight friends who had never actually shown any signs of discomfort. And I've talked to straight friends who admit they sometimes overthink their interactions with gay friends, worried about saying or doing the wrong thing. These mutual anxieties create distance where none needs to exist. What's particularly interesting about the shower story is how it highlights the gap between anticipated awkwardness and reality. In my head, there was this whole narrative about crossing boundaries and navigating complex social dynamics. In reality, Jake was just concerned about water pressure. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one, and sometimes a friend offering their shower is just being hospitable. I should clarify that I'm not suggesting all friendships should look the same or that everyone should be comfortable with the same level of physical proximity. Boundaries are personal and important. What I am suggesting is that we should examine whether our boundaries are based on our actual comfort levels or on assumptions about what might make others uncomfortable. About 6 months after the shower incident, Jake and I were hanging out at my place watching a basketball game. During a commercial break, he turned to me and asked, "Remember when you acted all weird about using my shower that time?" I nearly choked on my drink. What? I wasn't weird about it. Jake gave me his patented, "Yeah, right, look. Dude, you stood there staring at me for like 10 seconds when I offered." I thought I had said something offensive. I laughed, partly because he was right and partly because I had no idea my internal overthinking had been so visible. I was just surprised, I admitted. We'd never really done the whole sharing personal space thing before. Jake shrugged. "You were sweaty, and my place was closer than yours. Didn't seem complicated to me. And then you knocked to ask about the water pressure," I added, still finding humor in that detail. "Because the landlord literally warned me about it the day before," Jake defended, throwing a couch pillow at me. "Not everything is a deep social commentary, you know." We both laughed, and I appreciated his gentle calling out of my tendency to overanalyze. That's the thing about good friendships. They help you see yourself more clearly, sometimes by directly pointing out your blind spots. As our friendship has continued to evolve, I've noticed how that small moment, offering a shower, checking on water pressure, has become something of an inside joke between us, a shorthand for when either of us is overthinking something simple. If I'm hesitating about accepting a favor or help from him, Jake will sometimes say, "It's just water pressure, dude." His way of telling me to stop complicating things. I've come to believe that true friendship exists in these small, mundane moments of care and consideration far more than in grand gestures. It's in offering your shower to a sweaty friend. It's in checking that they have enough water pressure. It's in the absence of awkwardness where society tells you awkwardness should exist. So what's the takeaway from all this? Perhaps it's simply that we should give our friendships, and ourselves, more credit. That we should question the artificial boundaries we sometimes create based on differences that don't actually impact our ability to care for one another. That sometimes the most profound statements about acceptance and comfort come disguised as questions about water pressure. If you find yourself hesitating to accept kindness or to offer it because you're worried about how it might be perceived through the lens of identity differences, whether those differences are sexuality, race, religion, or anything else, remember my shower story. Remember that sometimes the most meaningful bridges are built through the most ordinary acts of friendship. And if you're lucky enough to have a friend who offers you their shower when you're sweaty, who checks on the water pressure because they want you to be comfortable, who can laugh with you about the times you've overthought things, well, that's a friendship worth cherishing, regardless of any differences between you. In the years since that day, Jake and I have helped each other through job changes, breakups, family crises, and celebrations. Our friendship has deepened in ways I couldn't have anticipated back when I was standing in his bathroom, surprised by his knock on the door. And while there have been many more meaningful moments between us, I still think about that day, about water pressure and overthinking and the simple kindness of offering a friend a shower, as a turning point in how I approach not just that friendship, but all my relationships. Sometimes the most important lessons come wrapped in the most ordinary packages. And sometimes, a knock on the bathroom door is just a friend making sure you have enough water pressure. Nothing more, nothing less, and somehow everything all at once. Total _char_count, 17,846.